Okay, Pinker 63 to we're gonna finish this chapter. And then but that's just what we're recording right now. After some other point will be so I think this is in like an hour long video. Alright. 2024, Albert 11 Adeldi. Today we also read from page like 50 or something. Okay, anyway. Organs for donation are an example. We're talking about this taboo trade-off, but well, let's just keep going. All right. Organs for donation are an example. No one needs both their kidneys, while 100,000 Americans. Oh, we've already read that. Okay. Okay, taboo trade-offs confront us not just in hypothetical policies, but in everyday budgetary decisions. A dollar spent on health or safety, a pedestrian overpass, a toxic waste cleanup, is a dollar not spent on education or parks or museums or pensions. Yet editorialists are unembarrassed to make nonsensical proclamations like, "No amount is too much to spend on X," or "We cannot put a price on Y," when it comes to sacred commodities like the environment, children, healthcare, or the arts, as if they were prepared to shut down schools to pay for sewage treatment plants or vice versa. Putting a dollar value on a human life is repugnant, but it's also unavoidable, because otherwise policymakers can spend profligate amounts on sentimental causes or pork barrel projects that leave worse hazards untreated. When it comes to paying for safety, a human life in the United States is currently worth around $7 to $10 million, though planners are happy for the price to be buried in dense technical documents. When it comes to paying for health, the price is all over the map. One of the reasons that America's healthcare system is so expensive and ineffective. To show that merely thinking about taboo trade-offs is perceived as morally corrosive, Tetlock presented experimental participants with the scenario of a hospital administrator faced with the choice of spending $1 million to save the life of a sick child, or putting it toward general hospital expenses. People condemned the administrator if he thought about it a lot rather than making a snap decision. They made the opposite judgment, esteeming thought over reflex when the administrator grappled with a tragic rather than a taboo trade-off, whether to spend the money to save the life of one child or the life of another. The art of political rhetoric is to hide, euphemize, or reframe taboo trade-offs. Finance ministers can call attention to the lives a budgetary decision will save and ignore the lives it costs. Reformers can redescribe a transaction in a way that tucks the tit for tat in the background. Advocates for the women in red light districts speak of sex workers exercising their autonomy rather than prostitutes selling their bodies. Advertisers of life insurance, once taboo, describe the policy as a breadwinner protecting a family rather than one spouse betting that the other will die. Okay, I should have read that a little bit. Anyway, Tetlock's third kind of taboo is the heretical counterfactual. Built into rationality is the ability to ponder what would happen if some circumstance were not true. Yeah, rationality is about conditions, about if-then. So it's, yeah, so conditional, definitely, okay. But conditionals, yeah, so alternatives to, and that's what's great about humans, that we have imaginary conditionals, extrapolated conditionals, something. Built into rationality is the ability to ponder what would happen if some circumstance were not true. It's what allows us to think in abstract laws rather than the concrete present, to distinguish causation from correlation. Chapter 9. The reason we say the rooster does not caused the sun to rise, even though one always follows the other, is that if the rooster had not crowed, then the sun would still have risen. Nonetheless, people often think it is immoral to let their minds wander in certain make-believe worlds. Tetlock asked people, what if Joseph had abandoned Mary when Jesus was a child? Would he have grown up as confident and charismatic? Devout Christians refused to answer. How that refusal looked, by the way, sometimes it may have been, oh, I'm not going to answer that. Okay, maybe. But other times, they didn't know that they were refusing. I'm imagining. They wouldn't admit to refusing. But basically, they just keep sliding. So, like, for instance, and the reason I'm speculating is because when I give people the trolley dilemma, they often will refuse to answer. Usually, they'll go for inaction, so they won't push the fat man to stop the trolley and save the five other innocent people strapped to the tracks. But for a long time, if that isn't their answer, or leading up to that answer, they refuse to answer. But not in the sense of, I'm not going to answer that. Instead, they just slip and slide around. They say, how do I know that will actually do it? Or they'll undermine the hypothetical altogether rather than asking a question. They'll say, yeah, but maybe that guy has the cure to cancer, or I can't make that decision, blah, blah. And then if you were to say, are you refusing to answer? Are you, refusing to go yes or no? I imagine that they would say, well, no, it's just that there's a whole lot of problems with your question. And in this case, I imagine someone going, oh, Jesus is confident and charismatic. Your question doesn't matter because Jesus is God. And why wouldn't God be confident and charismatic? I think that's how I imagine people refusing to answer, and that's based on personal experience. And it's so funny because it's like a computer glitching, because it's like, yeah, but you're like avoiding answering the question, right? And a lot of this stuff, like sometimes clarifications are important, but sometimes questions actually can be answered. And sometimes all these other its activate in place of any kind of actual response to the question. And the brain does not notice that that's happening. And then it's funny to watch it when you know why it's happening. When you know that whatever they're saying, it's a refusal to answer because of a discomfort with the question, because of, in the case of the trolley dilemma, they're an action bias. And here, or this as well, yeah, that it's to let one's minds wander in certain make-believe worlds. Oh yeah, and that's another thing they'll say that's a hypothetical. No shit, it's hypothetical. All right. Devout Christians refuse to answer. Some devout Muslims are even touchier. When Salman Rushdie published The Satanic Verses in 1988, a novel containing a narrative that played out the life of Muhammad in a counterfactual world in which some of Allah's words really came from Satan, oh my God, Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini issued a fatwa calling for his murder. Lest this mindset seem primitive and fanatical, try playing this game at your next dinner party. Of course, none of us would ever be unfaithful to our partners, but let's suppose, surely hypothetically, that we would. Who would be your adulterous paramour? Or try this one. Of course, none of us is the least bit racist, but let's say we were. Which group would you be prejudiced against? Or go further, which group would you remove or something like that? A relative of mine was once dragged into this game and dumped her boyfriend after he replied Jews. These seem like kind of tricky examples, because it's like, how does the sit stem have an answer if it's literally none in the least bit racist? So I guess if we rephrase the question, so try this, especially if you have a family that's anti-racist. Say none of us would endorse a racist policy, but if you just sort of like listen to your silly instincts, who are you like most prejudiced against? And you know what? I thought I was, as I was coming up with this, I was thinking that the answers would be different, but I bet you kind of see the same thing actually. Even if you removed all reasons for guilt or responsibility, by very sincerely and reasonably, and I hate using the word scientifically, let's say empirically, with sources where you justify it with information, um, and you were like, "Yo, we're all human brains. We all have, we're all quick to generalize and prejudice, and so luckily, we're good enough people here. We've learned enough about humanity to fight that instinct, but let's hear those instincts anyway as a fun hypothetical game. Fun just because, yeah, you got me there. But to be honest, it is fun. It's not, it shouldn't be, it's not supposed to be, but a lot of things are fun and funny. Sometimes because they're not supposed to be. Um, or there's some confounding factor that makes it both things. So yeah, okay. So yeah, it could be fun. I don't know what it would be. It's stupid, but just the way our brains are, it is fun. It's just like what I was talking about in another video about going and having fun in some conspiracy theories, listening to some siren songs, letting yourself be moved by the very compelling theories and the data that they have and the logic and arguments and stuff and or religion, go to church, pray, do tongues, pray for each other, see the symbols. I'm in a parking lot right now, and there's an RV that I'm thinking might be Sonia's. Don't know what is the least creepy thing to do. So I'm just gonna sit here and keep looking out the window, and then if she approaches it, have fun with it. But just don't endorse those things. And so, for instance, I'm not gonna go to Sony and say, "Hey, look, regardless of how you feel, and just stop screaming, regardless of whatever's happening in there. I have seen signs that have brought me here. So it's you and me, pal. Right? That's too much. That's crossing the line. There's a difference between recognizing our bad its. Well, this isn't a bad it, but also overseeing patterns where there aren't any, which is what I'm doing. Um, it's those are not sometimes great in truth seeking, but they're not bad its for fun. You can have fun and let you tickle yourself a little bit. All right, that's great. All right, that's good. And I bet they had a great laugh, and then and she probably even laughed too, and then broke up with them later. Okay, how could it be rational to condemn the mere thinking of thoughts, an activity that cannot by itself impinge on the welfare of people in the world? Ah, I feel like you're towing the line, Pig. I just want to say the world is not like just forests and rivers and mountains and seas and glaciers. The world is now, there's this one big species, Homo sapiens. And the world is the interactions between those Homo sapiens and the products of those Homo sapiens and the experiences and interpretations of those Homo sapiens and the knowledge and the feelings. So, which are all neural events. Many of them you might describe as thoughts, which are also neural events. So when you've got a lot of bad neural events, well, the water's bad. I mean, the world is basically now human neural events. At least a lot of important things about the world, but so, but at the same time, right, a single neural event does not guarantee, not by itself. It needs to be propagated, and it needs to also beget behavior and so on, which we would expect. All right. Tetlock notes that we judge people not just by what they do, but by who they are. A person who is capable of entertaining certain hypotheticals, even if the person has treated us well so far, might stab us in the back or sell us down the river were the temptation ever to arise. So, I don't know which of my objections over the last few minutes or which of my caveats or remarks were, they seemed reasonable to me, but which of them were reasonable and which of them were actually exactly what he's talking about. Because literally, Nick, I just said, if they're capable of entertaining certain hypotheticals, that's not good. And I guess I would change it to, because that is wrong, or that is that instinct, not necessarily reasonable. What if I say, if they're comfortable entertaining aloud certain things, that they're among friends, they've been made comfortable. All right, Pink. I think some of the things I said were of some value, maybe, but I'm with you. I don't remember any of them. So, all right. Imagine someone were, bro. That's so true. I thought I was gonna be too tired to talk. I thought you were gonna be able to just stick with the reading, but that's so true. I ended my sort of best friend group. I left them because despite years of friendship, how long? All right, like 6 years of friendship at the time. It can't be right. Yeah, I guess it is. Despite that, I had a bunch of stuff going on, and so there was, I had, they had, I was like, I might not be able to drive you guys, and for you, if you guys want to get there at the party when it starts, because I still got to wait for my dad's car to get back. And also, I feel guilty about some stuff with the family and some expenses, so I really want to finish this project. But as soon as my dad anyway, we're not gonna get into details. No, we have to. So as soon as my dad gets back, I'm gonna go shower. I just cannot. I was working on cleaning the garage. I could not, for the life of me, go shower and then be sitting looking pretty while I'm waiting for my dad to bring the car back, knowing that I'm not using that time to work on the garage because we had a guest coming and the floors were going to be changed. So that was my thing, and I had to make that contribution to the family because they were paying for a lawyer because of the stupid thing that happened. And ultimately, my dad gets there, and I end up arriving at the party downtown at the same time as them. But they took the train to guarantee that they would be able to get there. It was a day party, 2 p.m. or noon or whatever. They wanted to guarantee that they could get there that time. Felt bad, of course, but here's what they were talking about. One of them was good enough to let me know. They were like, "Yo, since we bought Eris's ticket, he didn't care about getting us to the party. If he had bought his own ticket, then he would have been like, oh, fuck this garage, and he would have gotten us there on time." I think we got off track there. Imagine someone were to ask you, for how much money would you sell your child? or your friendship, or citizenship, or sexual favors. The correct answer is to refuse to answer. Better still, to be offended by the question. As with the rational handicaps in bargains, threats, and promises, a handicap in mental freedom can be an advantage. We trust those who are constitutionally incapable of betraying us or our values, not those who have merely chosen not to do so thus far. Reasonable enough. But to bring the point home, Pinker, and maybe this is not what you mean, but I am going to just rephrase it and see what you think and publish it before you ever see it. We trust those who demonstrate being constitutionally incapable of betraying us or our values by refusing, even in hypotheticals when there are no consequences, not those who have just demonstrated that through their actions. All right, I fucked up at the end, but morality. Section morality. One more realm that is sometimes excluded from the rational is the moral. Can we ever deduce what's right or wrong? Yes, we can if we know what the objectives are. Can we confirm it with data? It's not obvious how you could. Many people believe that you can't get an ought from an is. The conclusion is sometimes attributed to Hume, with a rationale similar to his argument that reason must be a slave to the passions. "'Tis not contrary to reason," he famously wrote, "to prefer the destruction of the whole world to the scratching of my finger." Right, because the preference can't be inherently unreasonable. Another thing I want to say, how the relevance of rationality to morality, morality is well, humans have a lot of things in common. So you could literally do sort of brain scans and surveys and stuff, really intelligently designed surveys to find out certain ultimate, universal, or very common desires, even if those aren't the desires that you hear people saying out or affirming as their desires. You could find out the things that matter. You could find out all the ways that the desires we affirm often contradict other desires we affirm, and then other desires that have been found in research. So that's a way to make morality objective. Oh, what were the two words? No, it's not positive and normative. It's no. Theoretical reason and practical reason. Okay. No, I don't think that's the same thing. Anyway, so, but even if you say, look, we cannot. So yeah, you can apply empiricism rationality maybe to knowing desires. And then with those desires known or affirmed, whatever, then you can figure out what outcomes match those desires and use rationality to bring about those outcomes. But what you can't do is, without any desires, affirmed, whatever, without any desires, just say, like, it is morally true that that is bad. That can only be justified by a choice or a preference or whatever tendency. All right, let's carry on. So Hume is like, "'Tis not contrary to reason," he famously wrote, "to prefer the destruction of the whole world to the scratching of my finger." It's not that Hume was a callous sociopath. Turnabout being fair play, he continued, "'Tis not contrary to reason for me to choose my total ruin to prevent the least uneasiness of an Indian or person wholly unknown to me. Moral convictions would seem to depend on non-rational preferences, just like the other passions. This would jibe with the observation that what's considered moral and immoral varies across cultures, like vegetarianism, blasphemy, homosexuality, premarital sex, spanking, divorce, and polygamy. It also varies across historical periods within our own culture. In olden days, a glimpse of stocking was looked on as something shocking. Moral statements indeed must be distinguished from logical and empirical ones. Philosophers in the first half of the 20th century took Hume's arguments seriously and struggled with what moral statements could possibly mean if they are not about logical or empirical fact. Some concluded that X is evil means little more than X is against the rules, or I dislike X, or even X boo. Oh yeah. Do we not agree with them? I'm with those some there. Stoppard has fun with this in Jumpers when an introspector investigating a shooting is informed by the protagonist about a fellow philosopher's view that immoral acts are not sinful, but simply antisocial. The astonished inspector asks, he thinks there's nothing wrong with killing people? George replies, well, put like that, of course, but philosophically, he doesn't think it's actually inherently wrong in itself. No. Nah, right? Tinker, we agree, right? We're called cognitivists. Morality is a cognitive event. We're not non-cognitivists, are we, Tinker? Like the incredulous inspector, many people are not ready to reduce morality to convention or taste. When we say the Holocaust is bad, do our powers of reason leave us no way to differentiate that conviction from I don't like the Holocaust or my culture disapproves of the Holocaust? All right, well, so it's that. That's one thing. I don't like the Holocaust / my culture disapproves of the Holocaust, whatever. And then the other thing is that the Holocaust is inconsistent with some other goal that we have. So yeah, you could say that. I mean, if that's where you're going with this, Pinker, absolutely. I think I already just said all this. Because yeah, you can say that it's like that you can say that based on certain moral tenets that have been accepted, certain axioms, you could say the Holocaust defies those axioms. So that's another way that it's bad. So not only does it make me go boo, but also it defies other axioms that we've agreed on. Now let's suppose the Germans didn't agree. They did. They would have. Before they were in the thrush of it, in the throes or whatever. But let's suppose that they didn't. And let's leave aside what the Jews and gays and blacks and whatever they thought. Let's just talk about the Allies now. So the question is, well, if the Germans are like okay with it, and let's say everybody in Deutschland is okay with it, everybody in the Reichs are okay with it, then can we go in and intervene? Sure, because intervening, yay. Holocaust, boo. Intervening, yay. Intervening, consistent with my axioms of like maintaining the pleasure of my world. And since my people know about this, and since I know about, doesn't matter. Intervening, yay. I'm not gonna explain myself. We're fucking intervening because and you can't tell me like rationally I don't have a right to intervene. There's no rational foundation. It's just yay or nay. Boo. All right. What do you think? What do you think about that, Pinker? Let's go. Is keeping slaves no more or less rational than wearing a turban or a yarmulke or a veil? If a child is deathly ill and we know of a drug that could save her, is administering the drug no more rational than withholding it? Like category, like absolutely? It isn't. No. But within our preferences, yes, it is. Faced with this intolerable implication, some people hope to invest morality in a higher power. That's what religion is for, they say. Even many scientists, like Stephen Jay Gould. But Plato made short work of this argument 2,400 years ago in Euthyphro. Euthyphro. Is something moral because God commands it, or does God command some things because they are moral? If the former is true, and God had no reason for his commandments, why should we take his whims seriously? If God commanded you to torture and kill a child, would that make it right? He would never do that, you might object, refusing to respond to the question. But that flicks us onto the second horn of the dilemma. If God does have good reasons for his commandments, why don't we appeal to those reasons directly and skip the middleman? As it happens, the God of the Old Testament did command people to slaughter children quite often. In fact, it is not hard to ground morality in reason. No, the step zero cannot be in reason. Everything after that, everything between step zero and final action and law, it can be reasonable. But step zero cannot be. In fact, it is not hard to ground morality in reason. All right, do it then. Hume may have been technically correct when he wrote that it's not contrary to reason to prefer global genocide to a scratch on one's pinky. But his grounds were very, very narrow. What's that mean? As he noted, it is also not contrary to reason to prefer bad things happening to oneself over good things, say pain, sickness, poverty, and loneliness over pleasure, health, prosperity, and good company. Okay. But now, let's just say, irrationally, whimsically, mulishly, he's got a lot of good words in there. I haven't been circling them. Jibe. I haven't been circling them. What were some other words that I didn't know? I have not been noting enough at all. All right. Carrying on, I guess. Okay. Sorry. So let's start that sentence again. Okay. But now let's just say, irrationally, whimsically, mulishly, for no good reason, that we prefer good things to happen to ourselves over bad things. Okay, so that's your step zero, bud. Your step zero is that we prefer it. Okay, now what? Let's make a second wild and crazy assumption that we are social animals who live with other people rather than Robinson Crusoe on a desert island. So our well-being depends on what others do, like helping us when we are in need and not harming us for no good reason. Absolutely, bro. But you didn't ground it, bro. You laid a floor of wanting well-being, wanting good things. Yeah, wanting well-being, basically. Isn't that what good things are, well-being? So you wanted well-being, and then you carpeted it with, and remember, our well-being depends on others being cool, because we're not Robinson Crusoe. Now, yes, now you can have reason lead anywhere. Well, lead to being good. Absolutely, bro. But don't forget, that's the floor, not the ground. I think you and I are basically on the same page. I think you'd give that a thumbs up. This changes everything. As soon as we start insisting to others, you must not hurt me, or let me starve, or let my children drown, We cannot also maintain, but I can hurt you and let you starve and let your children drown and hope they will take us seriously. No, not that they will take us seriously, but that could be reasonable if my preference is I'm the greatest and only important person on earth. Um, that's my floor. You are tools to me, and those things hold. They won't take me seriously because other mechanisms would be like, oh, that's not good. That is because as soon as I engage you in a rational discussion, I cannot insist that only my interests count just because I'm me and you're not, any more than I can insist that the spot I am standing on is a special place in the universe because I happen to be standing on it. I can't justify that, but I could insist it. And then I say the rational conversation starts with that floor, just like you're trying to get me to do this we're all equal floor. Pinker, I'm adding this to the list. So your axioms about a conscious, rational set of faculties. Although you did do this to make that cool superhero comment. But still, I don't like that you even use. We need new words. Rationality means something to people. They can't define it. It really doesn't mean anything to people, but there are certain associations with it, which is, I guess, what meaning something means. And they are not true things. One of the first ones that you haven't reminded us about since you said it at the beginning was that rationality. It's not a superpower. Like either you have it or you don't. Someone forgets that, which the human brain could do. I loved that. But, we already have certain association about what rationality is. It's very easy to... What was that about superhero? And then the second... Oh, and I'm putting consciousness in the same thing. The whole judgment. And then the second thing is moral... This non-cognitivism error. All right. There we go. I'll email Pinker. Explain the judge myth to him. Cognitivism. I'm joking. Okay. The pronouns I, me, and mine have no logical heft. They flip with each turn in a conversation. I didn't say it's I that's important. What if I say it's Eris? And so any argument that privileges my well-being over yours or his or hers, all else being equal, is irrational. You probably think I've been drinking. I haven't, but I'm about to go get something to drink. All right. You have 3 or 4 more pages. Okay. When you combine self-interest and sociality with impartiality, the interchangeability of perspectives, you get the core of morality. By the way, I'm not unfamiliar with this. One of the smartest people I have had the pleasure of calling a friend, named Marcus, I won't say his last name. He should have just focused on philosophy, but went into programming because, money and stuff. And I'm sure he's still doing it. And a huge important thing to him was proving altruism. He and I totally agreed that altruism is the right thing to do. But where we disagreed was I was like, yeah, but you can't ground that. You can't. We would need to, it just happens to be that you and I both have the preferences of like willing to sacrifice for other people's well-being. We both have the sensitivity to that. And he mentioned this I and me and that thing. Yeah, so this interchangeability of perspectives, impartiality. But impartiality for me is an assumption. Interchangeability, no. But that meaning anything, yes. You get the golden rule. were the variants that take note of George Bernard Shaw's advice. Do not do unto others as you would have others do unto you. They may have different tastes. This sets up Rabbi Hillel's version. What is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. That is the whole Torah, he said when challenged to explain it while the listener stood on one leg. The rest is commentary. Versions of these rules have been independently discovered in Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Islam, Baha'i, and other religions and moral codes. These include Spinoza's observation. Those who are governed by reason desire nothing for themselves which they do not also desire for the rest of humankind. I don't get it, bro. I mean, I get that. I want that. Why am I sitting here in the cold and reading to 4 people? Because I want to help. And Kant's categorical imperative. Act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. And John Rawls' theory of justice. I mean, these are all great principles. It's just not like absolutely demonstrable without, some assumptions. The principle, John Rawls' theory of justice, the principles of justice are chosen behind a veil of ignorance about the particulars of one's life. I don't know what that is. For that matter, the principle may be seen in the most fundamental statement of morality of all, the one we use to teach the concept to small children. How would you like it if he did that to you? None of these statements depend on taste, custom, or religion. No, it kind of depend on us being pro-social human brains, or having the disposition toward that. Yes, all this is true, but it's like because I am a human brain, so I'm like, yeah. And then, actually, isn't it undermined by the George Bernard Shaw's advice? Do not do unto others as you would have others do unto you. They might have different tastes. I've always had that complaint about the golden rule, by the way. It's like, what do you mean do unto others as you would have them do unto you? We're also kind of different. I mean, yeah, okay, we're all human brains, but or that's not how I said it when I was a kid, but no, yeah, when I was a kid, we're different. Things that you would enjoy that I would not, and vice versa. Shouldn't we be learning each other's desires and what we want done unto each other? And that is an example of something I had no problem thinking because I didn't really understand. I was a kid, so this was well before I had any sort of concept of the sit stem. But it's only recent anyway. So that I would have been like, yeah, we're these rational, moral entities, robots, and yeah, so we should just like go and memorize the people around us, their things, and then anytime we're interacting with them, we behave accordingly. I didn't understand that we were human brains. So it is good to have a golden rule, is because human brains can't actually really learn all of people's different peculiarities. So it's good to have as sort of a basis, the golden rule. And then as you get to know someone, you learn their peculiarities in certain relationships, the ones that count. I'm sure the human brain can do that for a few dozen, definitely for a couple dozen people, definitely for a dozen people. And I bet it can have some sort of nuanced approach to a couple hundred people. Just based on what I'm imagining our tribe sizes were and immediate family sizes and stuff. Of course, that's tricky because then again, with immediate family, yes, there are differences. So maybe, period, I stop now. But the golden rule is even more useful with people that are like-minded. Fine. I mean, that no wonder that's another thing that contributes to how difficult it is when a whole bunch of not like-minded people get together. Golden rule sometimes stops helping, but no, human brains pretty much all the same. But still, some of what I'm saying is no, it's true. It's just percentages. It's hard to not talk in black and white, and that's why I sound like I'm contradicting myself, and I think that I'm contradicting myself, but I don't think that I am actually. Okay, carrying on. Let's finish this chapter. Rationality and irrationality. Okay. Let's start this paragraph again. None of these statements depends on taste, custom, or religion. And though self-interest and sociality are not, strictly speaking, rational, thank you, they're hardly independent of rationality. How do rational agents come into existence in the first place? Who are you talking about? Unless you are talking about disembodied rational angels, yeah, what humans think that they are products of evolution with fragile, energy-hungry bodies and brains. My dude. I'm still gonna make my list, though, before I forget, before I get seduced. Alright, so make a Yod list. Non-cognitivism. What should we say? Around page 69. And then consciousness, conscious, rational self. Like everywhere, bro, but I'll find some examples later. Okay. But this, you thank you. To have remained alive long enough to enter into a rational discussion, they must have staved off injuries and starvation, goaded by pleasure and pain. The evolution, moreover, works on populations, not individuals, so a rational animal must be part of a community, with all the social ties that impel it to cooperate, protect itself, and mate. Reasoners in real life must be corporeal and communal, which means that self-interest and sociality are part of the package of rationality. Yes. I mean, yes. Just don't say it's like absolutely deducible and provable, but yeah, that sentence sings for me. And with self-interest and sociality comes the implication we call morality. Yeah, bro. Impartiality, the main ingredient of morality. Preferences is the main ingredient. So no, bro. Preferences. I'm not convinced. Someone help me. Impartiality, the main ingredient of morality, is not just a logical nicety, a matter of the interchangeability of pronouns. Practically speaking, it also makes everyone, on average, better off. Yes. Practically speaking, practical reason, yes. Life presents many opportunities to help someone or to refrain from hurting them at a small cost to oneself. Chapter 8. So if everyone signs on to helping and not hurting, everyone wins. This does not, of course, mean that people are in fact perfectly moral, just that there's a rational argument as to why they should be. Yeah. Sorry I rushed through that. Very good. You can quote Kant and Spinoza and John Rawls. Quote whoever you want. I'm going to quote Ted Bundy. I'm going to look it up. Hold on. Al Bundy. And not, what is this? Not carving I meant. By the way, when I used to be a moral absolutist when I was younger. When I was a teenager. And I was like, definitely, bro, moral absolutism. And I've mentioned this in videos. And then I had a teacher that asked the question, do we like things because they are good, or are they good because we like them? Similar to Pinker's thing here about the commandments in God. Did God choose the commandments because they are right, or did his choosing them make them right? And so I'm in this class, seeing eye to eye with this teach. And the teacher asked that question, and I go, well, obviously things are good. I mean, the definition of something good is that it is something that serves us, or it is something that pleases us. So, I mean, something can be healthy, but good, it's, it's a subjective thing. It depends on blah, blah, the person. And, yeah. And we were like, yo, so I failed that class. Stop going. He was an idiot. He said, beauty is not in the eye of the beholder. He said, love is not chemicals in the brain. Turns out he was religious. He was just terrible. And here's what convinced me. Or here's what really drove it home for me. I think this is where this memory is from. Quotes Ted Bundy as saying that, for me, ripping and murdering women is like for you carving up a ham at Thanksgiving. And you're like, why wouldn't I? I mean, I get that it's not like that for you, but for me, it's not that. All right, I couldn't find the quote, by the way. It might have been made up. I don't know. All right, page 70. Are you kidding? Do you have to come over here? Neo's gonna run outside. You have to leave the ball, though. Neo doesn't even smell you yet. Neo, you're just chilling, huh? You don't smell this, dude? You don't smell this, dog? Literally right there. He's having your water. Come on, buddy. Were you dreaming? What was going on? All right, come on, buddy. Okay, let's go. Section irrationality about rationality. Is there going to be a section irrationality about rationality? Despite its lack of coolth, we should, and in many non-obvious ways do, follow reason. Merely asking why we should follow reason is not confessing that we should. Pursuing our goals and desires is not the opposite of reason, but ultimately the reason we have reason. Well, and ultimately what good reason would do, the purpose that reason would serve, the tool that reason is for. We deploy reason to attain these goals and also to prioritize them when they can't all be realized at once, and when they're contradicting each other. Surrendering to desires in the moment is rational for a mortal, because for evolution, wanted certain ultimate goals achieved. So it installed these proximate goals, as we learned about previously. But as we learned about from David Eagleman, the best way to solve a problem, and what Mother Nature did, is overlapping solutions. So she installed this proximate goal that would in some situations lead to this ultimate goal A. She installed this proximate goal, which in other situations might lead to ultimate goal A. She installed this proximate goal, which in some situations might lead to ultimate goal B. She installed this proximate thing, and so there's a bunch of proximate ones for each ultimate. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be conflict between proximate goals. And he talked about that. He talked about the reason it should be used to resolve those. But so sometimes, though, you're going to have to be like, oh shit, I got this proximate goal hardwired into me. but it's not actually good. Uh, it isn't super useful, at least in this day and age, for getting me to my ultimate goal. And also, it like seriously conflicts with some other goals that I have for myself, and some ultimate goals of my genes. Okay. Surrendering to desires in the moment is rational for a mortal being in an uncertain world, as long as future moments are not discounted too steeply or short-sightedly. When they are, our present rational self can outsmart a future, less rational self by restricting its choices, an example of the paradoxical rationality of ignorance, powerlessness, impetuousness, and taboo. Good stuff. And morality does not sit apart from reason, but falls out of it as soon as the members of a self-interested social species impartially deal with the conflicting and overlapping desires among themselves. All this rationalization of the apparently irrational may raise the worry that one could twist any quirk or perversity into revealing some hidden rationale. But the impression is untrue. Sometimes the irrational is just irrational. People can be mistaken or deluded about facts. They can lose sight of which goals are most important to them and how to realize them. They can reason fallaciously, or, more commonly, in pursuit of the wrong goal, like winning an argument rather than learning the truth. They can paint themselves into a corner, saw off the branch they're sitting on, shoot themselves in the foot, spend like a drunken sailor, play chicken to the tragic end, stick their heads in the sand, cut off their nose to spite their face, and act as if they are the only ones in the world. At the same time, the impression that reason always gets the last word is not unfounded. Is not unfounded, is founded. It's in the very nature of reason that it can always step back, look at how it is being applied or misapplied, and reason about that success or shortcoming. The linguist Noam Chomsky has argued that the essence of human language is recursion. A phrase can contain an example of itself without limit. We can speak not only about my dog, but about my mother's friend's husband's aunt's neighbor's dog. We can remark not only that she knows something, but that he knows that she knows it. And she knows that he knows that she knows it. Ad infinitum. Bullshit. I used to wonder whether a test of intelligence, and I wouldn't be very high. I'd only score like maybe a 2 or a 3, and also I'd never tested it, so maybe it'd be inaccurate. I'd actually only score a 1. Maybe in fact I'm able to vividly imagine, but not actually know. I do not believe that the human brain can handle ad infinitum recursions. I do think that maybe in the future there will be like a lot more. I think I would max out at like being able to handle the question, how does she feel about how he feels about how she feels about how he feels? I don't think I could. I know I couldn't even come up with an answer past that, I think. And then the answer that I would come up with at that level, I don't even know whether they would be true if you gave me an example. Ad infinitum. Here you go again with your humans are so whatever. All right. Recursive phrase structure is not just a way to show off. We would not have evolved the ability to speak phrases embedded in phrases if we did not have the ability to think thoughts embedded in thoughts. Sure. Let's go like level 2 or 3, bro. 21st century humans are not past that. I mean, I'm sure there are a few. Not me, and not most. I'll bet like chimps can do a little bit of like, how am I feeling and how is another person feeling? Maybe they can't do how is another person feeling about my feeling. So that involves knowing what I'm feeling, knowing what that person might be perceiving of my feeling, and then based on that information, whatever they're perceiving about my feeling, then what is that information doing in their brains? What are the it's producing for feeling themselves? That seems like out of the reach to me of super smart non-human primates. Humans can go a little bit farther, and there are probably other hominids that could have gone a little farther, but not as far as modern Homo sapiens now, I'm guessing. And why would you even say that ad infinitum? Why would we have evolved the ability to like be able to detect how she's feeling about how he feels about how he feels about how she feels about how they feel about how she feels about how they feel about how she feels about how they feel? Why? Didn't you say something about us being energy? What'd you say, bro? Products of evolution with fragile, energy-hungry bodies and brains? All right, pal. I don't even think that could be taught to today's human brains. And what, you think that it's just like something we're all able to just do? All right. Oh shit. I think this is almost actually perfect for that video. That's great. Okay. All right. And that is the power of reason. It can reason about itself. Reason isn't a thing. Reason is a set of events, and those things that are doing those events can sort of do those things about those events, yes, not ad infinitum, mind you. When something appears mad, we can look for a method to the madness. When a future self might act irrationally, a present self cannot smart it. When a rational argument slips into fallacy or sophistry, slips into, you overestimate us so hard. It starts in, fucks around in, and finishes in fallacy and sophistry. Oh, you said when a rational argument slips in. All right, my bad. Okay. When a rational argument slips into fallacy or sophistry, an even more rational argument exposes it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And by the way, all those embedded things, we can do that with multiple brains. Definitely, bro. Put a bunch of brains together in the community. So no, not an individual brain, but you're just saying humans. If so, all right. And if you disagree, if you think there is a flaw in this argument, it's reason that allows you to do so. Sorry for messing up the dramatic ending, buddy. All right, next chapter, next time, chapter 3, logic and critical thinking. Ooh.